LCS tonight, we got a dance party going on right now. Now it stopped. No longer the dancing is happening. I am Phreak.
Still a party. We're just not dancing.
Just not dancing. Still a party. That's Kobe. That's Zirene. How you doing?
We're partying.
We're partying.
To set this mood.
We're partying on the inside. Speaking of parties, welcome to LCS tonight. It's amazing. You're all invited to be part of this awesomeness. Let's talk about where the teams are standing right now in the standings, or sitting down. Either one is fine. But we've got most of the teams locked in for playoffs. We've got a lot of teams also cut out of it as well, but there's still a fight near the bottom. TSM, Team Liquid, and Counter Logic Gaming fighting for 2 playoff spots. One of them not going to make it, 2 of them will.
Yeah, it got a little bit more risky here for CLG, you could say, today with, TSM taking this victory. This entire weekend, honestly, the 2-0 weekend for them was huge. But again, after this Team Liquid victory, they also beat Cloud9, and that put a lot of the hopefuls for Counter Logic Gaming kind of on the edge.
Yeah, but on the flip side of it, the TSM fans are now like, we're doing it, we're back in there, and it's like every single time. If this happens again, if TSM make the finals again, after pretty much the worst they've looked during the regular season, save for that one time that they entered playoff 6, it's like, that's actually insane, and the meme of they always make the finals is just stupid ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's not.
I'm pretty
it's a
frustrated
historical fact. That's not. It's not a meme.
Yeah, I feel like I'm desperate for Breaking Bad. Just they can't keep getting away with it.
Exactly.
And it's like we've historic stats. They've never started winless in the first week. They've never had a negative record after the 7 weeks. And it's like, all right, well, they're going to the finals, guys. Like I actually remember talking with Nero yesterday off air, and he's like, yeah, us and TSM, that's the finals. I'm just gonna try to dodge them until finals, and then in we go. And it's just like, everyone's waiting for TSM to collect that run in the top 2 at the very least.
But it always seems to happen. They always seem to get it together by the end. I like what Reggie said on the lounge.
And then fall apart in time for MSI. You've got to make sure you get time for that, so they can dip back
That's why they make changes to try and prevent that.
NA once again. Well, they can prevent it by not qualifying for MSI. And they almost succeeded this time around.
Well,
in the middle of the pack, though, Team Liquid, also 2 games ahead of CLG, so they're of course pretty likely as well, even though they are looking a lot weaker. I remember at one point they were 6-4, and chat's like, this is a way better than 60% team, and here they are at 9-7, and it's like, I don't know if you guys are really improving very much.
Yeah, it's just always the gelling and trying to get people to work on the same page. I know the bottom lane, it's kind of the honeymoon phase is over for Doublelift and Olay. They have a lot of issues. They have to work through those issues. It's time for the marriage counseling to come in and get that team on track because, like Jat said, they should be better than that, right?
Yeah.
The fact that they have all of these superstar players and these people who have such a high pedigree, they should actually be playing at a higher level.
I mean, today they seem extremely calm. They made definitely a lot of mistakes. Pobelter got killed early, Doublelift got picked off, then Olay also got picked off.
Yep.
So those are definite things that they're going to point to in review and be like, yes, I know that was definitely a dumb mistake. Yeah. But the overall way that the team looked and the way that they were approaching the game seemed a lot more calm. It seemed a lot more planned out than previously. So at least there is that for the team. And I actually, I do have pretty good confidence in them.
Did you see the Doublelift, either of you, the Doublelift tweets from last night about how Teal's approaching
the 3 paragraphs?
Yeah.
You as well?
Yes.
Do you guys both believe that? Or is he just like putting in excuses for the losses?
It's a similar message to what TSM was saying when he was also on TSM. You know how they wanted to try more things on stage. When TSM played Galio, right? When they were trying to force the Bjergsen's Galio thing, and all the fans were like, what are you doing? Why are you picking Galio? And then it ended up being such a huge pick. So there is definitely something to that.
Yeah, there's going to be different win rates in scrims, and you're going to find that something is good for your team, and then you get on stage and something different happens. The Varus pick got a lot of criticism, but it's like, yeah, if you're playing it in scrims in the right environment and there's the right selects around it and champion select for the enemy and yourself, it'll definitely thrive, right? But it's just, something goes wrong. I'm sure if the Darius that looked great today on stage, something
could have
had
looked
gone different.
stupid if you got ganked a whole bunch.
Exactly.
Like, why would you pick Darius, you idiots? And of course, it looked great.
And as a pro player, I think you just have to ignore all that crap.
Oh, you do.
And just be like, just look at the way that it played out, not exactly the results, but also like why is it working, why is it not working, and that's what you target as opposed to whether it worked or didn't work.
Great. So it feels like we're both pretty hot on Team Liquid right now. If they are playing now to their own style somewhat, they're looking pretty good. But that last team on the outside looking in for playoffs is, of course, Counter Logic Gaming. The dankest timeline is still a possibility here. CLG are 2 games behind either Liquid or TSM, so they have to go 2-0 weekend. At least one of the teams must go 0-2 if they want to make that playoff run. But CLG have been looking pretty good.
Yeah, but TSM their schedule is Golden Guardians and then CLG. And if they beat Golden Guardians, then that last game doesn't really matter for TSM because they would be 2 ahead. Or at least out of reach from CLG.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, those teams can get out of reach of CLG, but CLG can at least make it a 2-win run, right? They've got the Optic one that you're expecting really heavily from them, and you're hoping that one of those teams do drop.
And whether or not CLG ends up making it or not, I think that it's still, there's a lot of positive takeaways for the team, just with the way that they've been playing. I mean, this is definitely the start of an incredible run, you know, the miracle run everyone's talking about. Sure. Their goal is to just make their part of the run happen. You know, go the 6-0, win all of these games, and have this, you know, very uplifting end to the split, which it was, you know, pretty tragic start for them, honestly. So either way, you know, that's going to be, you know, good for the players, good for the organization as far as looking toward next split. However, the playoff, you know, the playoff race being interesting would be like the cherry on top. Like if the last game versus TSM does matter, that's like such an incredibly hyped game to end the split on.
You got to control all the factors and focus on those, the ones that you can control, right? Doesn't matter what they're doing unless you like scrim Golden Guardians and give them a bunch of TSM strats, right? Just I mean, prepare them to take them down.
They're trying to funnel all the faith into the Golden Guardians first because that one needs to happen. Or what is
TL Liquid 0-2?
Yeah, what's
CLG is one word to look at. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, what's Team Liquid?
I don't know who they play.
Okay. Well, they have 2 teams to root for.
TL plays against Cloud9 and someone else for the last week of the schedule. So CLG can tiebreak either one if they 2-0. And Optic apparently is the one. So Optic, either way, is holding some cards here this one. Optic and Golden Guardians are the ones potentially keeping the teams down. We'll see if they can start at the very end. So that talks about the sort of 5, 6, 7 playoff spot. Let's talk about top 4. Because last week, it was like, Echo Fox are the best team.
Well, I said C9.
Okay, that's fair. Not everyone. You were still high on Cloud9. So Cloud9, Echo Fox, Clutch Gaming close behind, but also 100 Thieves keeping up as well. They've been looking pretty sharp. 4 teams in the reach for the top 2 spots. Who are you giving it to?
I would also like to note that Phreak said multiple times.
Echo Fox 18-0, quote me. They lose a game, still said 18-0, quote me.
By the way, I just wanted to quote you. So
Echo Fox 18-0, quote me. Still happening just at Worlds this year.
Yeah, but
their playoff run plus an MSI 18-0.
But seriously, the last couple of weeks definitely give pause. You know, yes, 2 of the losses that they had were to Counter Logic Gaming, but even in some of the wins for Echo Fox, people were a little bit unsure, you know, picking apart a couple things. And I still have a lot of faith. Like, the players are very good, but some of the, not only bottom lane that people are looking at, but also the mid-game kind of coordination with them, it seems like they've gotten themselves into good positions in most of the games, but they've also made a lot of uninformed, very risky moves, maybe.
I kind of equate this to when I play on my Smurf for like a month and I'm just crushing kids in silver, and then I go play on my main account, I make such stupid decisions because I'm still in that silver mentality where I'm like, I could get away with anything. We're just way better. I'm just way better than these guys, right? It's like I don't actually have like stat increases over them. I'm just mechanically better. Then you play against opponents that are on the same.
Back to reality.
Boom. You're just like, I suck. I'm never going to be that great.
And
right now,
that's
Echo
how
Fox,
I view you all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But now I feel like Echo Fox.
I can see it in his eyes. He was just
He's
waiting.
always waiting for that. Damn it.
You're my favorite person to dig at. I don't even know why. It's just, you make it so easy.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you're not digging me.
You're a great setup.
But I definitely love that there's a little more parity at the top right now, and it's very hard to figure out who is that number 1 because Echo Fox have very glaring weaknesses, and I think across the board as well, all the top teams are not like by far and away a top team in the NALCS. Yeah.
How about Cloud9, Clutch, 100 Thieves?
Cloud9 I still think is my number 1
You
personally.
still like Cloud9 even though they lost to Liquid?
I think they adapt better than most other teams in the top 4. I think that Echo Fox are very rigid in the way that they play, and I think that Cloud9 with their rookie, they're still like finding ways of how is he malleable in this way, how can we play around Licorice, give his resources away, and I think that they're still experimenting with that.
I mean, Svenskeren also showed, you know, he got picked off quite a few times. I would have to say, I would be on the camp of giving credit to Bjergsen.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
rather
nuts.
than like taking away from Svenskeren a whole bunch. There was definitely a little bit that you can take away.
Sure.
But there's also a level of, you gotta give the honors to Bjergsen there for that one, because that was honestly insane.
That's the Bjergsen X factor that breaks the game, because it was even up until that first Baron, right? So they were neck and neck, and then Bjergsen kind of grabbed the reins for I would say one of the first times of the split where it's just really definitive. Bjergsen is crushing and
been
bringing them back in.
It was so funny too because Bjergsen's interview yesterday was, I don't even think about me and Jets anymore. It's a team-based game. Whoever does more for their team, I just hope I can do more for my team than Jets. Well, turns out hard carrying 1v5 is a lot for your team, Bjergsen. So props to you. Haven't seen the form from him in a while. It was nice to see. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
You started laughing and you're just like, yeah, we're good.
I mean, I'm letting you go for
right.
Who's your number one, Kobe?
Who's your number one?
My number one team?
Of those four, at least, maybe.
I mean, it's still between Echo Fox and Cloud9 for
Okay.
me. I have been impressed with 100 Thieves, specifically with Aframu and Meteos and the kind of the coordination between those two veterans, though. Because those are two guys I know have very strong opinions about how to play the game and ways to call the game. So I anticipated there being some clashes between those guys early on, or maybe like, at the very least, hesitation. Sometimes when you have two people like that, they'll like bring up ideas and then you have this period of discussion in game. But
mid-game retro.
But honestly, at least the last few weeks, that has not been the case. And the speed, I think, has been something that was very impressive, too.
And the 100 Thieves turnaround honestly surprised me a ton because I actually called, I don't know if I did it on air or not, but I pretty much called that 100 Thieves was going to replace players at a certain point because you talked about Meteos and Afra having strong opinions, and it's like, okay, well, they've got an academy team, they can sign someone, and just like, it's not working, they're playing really chaotically, and I'm like, something's got to change, but they just figured it out. And like now they look super, super sharp. So, I mean, props to Prawley and the rest of that crew for figuring out how they want to play the game.
I think Prawley does deserve a lot of credit because he's working with a lot of people who have very definitive ways that they like to play the game, and they've played it for years, and they've been a voice on their team.
Yep.
So having people kind of check their ego or find places where they slot in at certain points to command the team, I think takes a lot. And I think Prawley, his style where he is not very rigid, he adjusts to his players, I think it deserves a lot of credit there. And you were talking about it, but I think the community was talking about it as well, where they were like, they have Levi. They have this guy who was from Vietnam on GAM, who's been to Worlds, who's been to these tournaments and smashed on the bench. And then it's like, what are we going to do to get him in there for Meteos' spot? It's like, the community was kind of calling for some people's heads, but Prawley kept it cool, and he's able to just get the team right on track. And that's why 100 Thieves, like, I was not expecting them to lock a playoff spot before the likes of TSM, TL.
Yep, but they did a great job in the sort of end of the season. Of course, 2 games left for them. They're playing Clutch and Echo Fox. That'll be a fun warm-up for their playoff run because those are both locked in as well. Let's move on to our next topic of the discussion here. It's a general topic you wanted to bring up, the quote-unquote tank meta that we're in right now in 7.4, and top lane specifically, and this is a slide that you're going to talk about here.
Yeah, so I wanted to check out, because everybody's saying there's a top lane tank meta. I actually call BS on that because I don't think it's a top lane tank meta. I think you could play pretty much anything. The counter picks are coming out, and that's what people are adjusting to, is we're seeing the GP a whole bunch. The Scion and the Galio are kind of the only two that I think are like really kind of tanks that get banned away because they're so powerful. But otherwise, it's like, you see all these counters come out. Even Someday in that last game was like, I will play Darius into Cho'Gath. He played Poppy into Camille, right, before. So it's like, I think that top lane is very open to counterpicking, doing your research, and figuring out how you get an edge over your opponent, as opposed to just blind picking these tanks. And I think that's kind of the lazy solution. And I think that the top lane tank meta came in because people were like, banner. Who's going to take the banner? Let's have as many banners as we can. And that was the first week where we saw like Maokai Cho'Gath pop up a
interesting.
bunch.
Like actually 2.5 banners per game, like per team almost.
And now
it's calmed way the heck.
Well, it was also because a lot of the nerfs to the carry champions that we had been seeing.
Well, of course, Gangplank is down, but still viable.
Nothing after
Narg
Camille,
came
though.
down, still viable. Yeah, and I agree. Maybe Camille's a bit underprioritized, but I mean, you're right, right? Like the champion priority did get moved, right? We're suddenly like not seeing any Vladimir anymore because there's no like Gangplank to counter.
Well, also because if you buy banner versus Vladimir, he does nothing.
I mean, and that's also true, right? Like there's obviously metagame implications. People discover more things to go on. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on this, sort of, Kobe?
I mean,
Kobe.
I didn't hear everyone's calling for a tank meta or whatever, so
I've heard a lot of that online personally.
Yeah, you check Reddit and stuff. It's like, this guy's in a tank meta and stuff. Like, I was literally just checking it right before the show as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. If we're specifically talking about only top lane matchups, like then I agree with you. Like you don't
strawman them.
You don't have to you don't have to pick
internet.
a tank in the top lane.
No, you don't.
If that's what we're going for.
And in the jungle, it seems similar. You've got the Kazakhs running around and everything else. So I guess there's not a lot of non-tanks other than Kazakhs in the jungle.
But the other thing that's interesting is like if you do have a meta where, or at least a large people buy into this, where a lot of people are playing tanks, maybe not everybody. Then you do breed the counters to what a lot of people are picking. And the term meta is just the overarching strategy for how to play the game from a high level. Like the overarching guiding principles, right?
Right,
and those will evolve from week to week. Because if a pattern does develop, then the counter to that pattern, exactly. Some days, like, I was looking for my counter pick. Then I saw that Darius was buffed. Darius' greatest strength is, lane matchups and snowballing versus tanks.
Yep.
So
he's now playing fast
I kind of
games.
like how the progression.
Yeah, I love that as well. I'm always happy when teams want to play against the meta and counter the meta. That, I think, is always the way you should try to get your strategies together. So love for somebody for doing that.
I think that should be a requirement for top laners. I think top laners should have an edge of creativity so that they can have that counter focus, because it is still an isolated matchup a lot of the times. And that's why I think Khan is such a great player, because you watch him pull out all of these counter picks. You go back to Huni, who kind of invented a lot of top lane counter picks. Cassio into Gnar, had the Cho'Gath into the Rise, right? Had the
he was one of the early Lucian adopters.
One of the early Lucian
adopters. Him and Cabochard, give Cabochard his credit.
So he really does kind of put in his time to find what can I do to get every possible edge over my opponent that I can. And that's what I really like to see in a top laner, somebody who doesn't just do the homework, but they go above and beyond and find that.
Great. So speaking of going above and beyond, let's go above and beyond today's schedule and talk about next week's schedule. Transitions on point right there. 100 Thieves vs. Clutch Gaming starts off today. You can see the rest of those games up there. Anything you guys are keenly aware of you're looking out for?
Number 1 and number 3. And then number 4.
I mean, literally every game here has playoff implications. CLG must win to stay alive. TSM secure playoffs if they beat TL, secures playoff if they beat Cloud9. Like, all those top 3 teams are fighting for a first-round bye as well. So it's nice that, at least on Saturday, none of the games, unless both Liquid and TSM win, mean nothing. Because if they both win, then CLG's out.
Yeah, and even then, like, FlyQuest versus Echo Fox. Echo Fox still trying to hold on to that number 1 spot, right? They're actually, even right now with Cloud9,
I believe,
they do have a 2-0 tiebreaker over Cloud9.
Yeah.
So they are a little bit ahead in head-to-head, but still, they want to have that definitive, hey, we win this, and then they would lock in a first-round bye, I believe.
And it's starting off the day with playoff preview. Two playoff teams going at it, 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming. So
potentially like the 3 and 4 right now based on standings, and that's like, okay, those are like the quarterfinal favorites, kind of.
And that means if you're playing a tiebreaker for 5-6 later, you're kind of looking at that one like, okay, which one looked stronger in that match, right?
Sure. I mean, there's also the chance that there's a 3-way tie for Liquid, TSM, and CLG. That gets really exciting, which is the dream, obviously. So cool stuff there. Also, keep in mind the NALCS Lounge stream will return during Team Liquid versus Cloud9. Jat, Rick Fox, and a rotating crew of Echo Fox players will be hanging out. I'm excited for Jat.
The 10-man roster, the Echo Fox 10-man roster.
Rick Fox?
I'm excited for Jat's debut to the NALCS Lounge, by the way. That's what I'm most excited for.
I mean,
yeah, what's going on with the analyst test then?
Well, I mean, you got to put the guy who has all this NBA fandom
Stay tuned.
in there, right? I think Jat's got all that knowledge.
But yeah, who is going to analyze? Who do you think is going to analyze during that game?
Not you.
Alongside Mark Z. I would hope not me. I'm likely casting at that time. Well, that's it for us. Thank you for watching. These guys are crazy, mostly Kobe. Zirene's cool. And we'll see you next week.
Why'd you give me a Whoa.
Yeah, see?
You
Next time, I think they will be like really careful.